And we do welcome in a special guest. It is Alex Erickson, former Wisconsin wide receiver, 9-year NFL career. Appreciate you jumping on, Alex.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here.
So, are you officially done? Are you officially done with the NFL, or is it you still got a little? Maybe if there's a call.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm not officially done. I'm not pushing like I was in years past, but still in good enough shape. If someone needs a couple punt returns and a few games in the year, I'll be ready to go.
That's awesome. All right, so I want to go all the way back to before you got to Wisconsin. Obviously, the walk-on tradition at Wisconsin is well known. It feels like it's gone away a little bit just because of the way college football is these days. But for you, I'm always interested in how guys end up at Wisconsin as walk-ons. Can you take us through that story? Because I know it's a little bit different than some others.
Yeah, it's a kind of a unique story. When I look back on it, at the time you're so naive to everything. You're just like, oh, this is the way it goes, you know. So I was coming out. I wasn't highly recruited. Like had a lot of stats. I always played in a small school. Wasn't sure if I really wanted to play basketball or football. I like basketball more than football if it was equal playing fields. And so I was going to go to Stevens Point to play basketball. And I had a former coach of mine that had some connections at Wisconsin. And Luke Swan was up there at the time. And so we're having dialogue with them. And it kind of started like, hey, there might be something here. And then kind of just, they went silent. And then one day out of the blue, I already committed to Stevens Point. I already sent in my deposit. I was about 3 weeks away from going to go up there and start training for the summer. And I got an acceptance letter to Wisconsin, but I didn't hear anything from like the team or anything. And so then we called up there, and the rules, like there's dead periods, and so you couldn't really have great conversations with people. Well, they ended up talking to me, and they're like, well, we want you to walk on, but it's not going to be till the spring or the winter of 2012, which would have been my second semester at Wisconsin. So we're like, okay, like this is a sure thing. I don't know. Well, anyways, like I said, I was naive, and I said, screw it, we're going to go up there. And so I went just as a normal student, and then the spring came around, and I enrolled, or not enrolled, I was already there, but I joined the team, like kind of like when the early enrollees come and the transfer guys come. And so then I jumped in with that crew and joined the spring of or winter of 2012 after they started back after the Rose Bowl, the year after Russell Wilson and those guys.
What did you do that first semester? Were you going crazy wondering what's my career here going to look like? And I'm just a normal student.
Right. And then I would tell people I'm joining the team in the winter. They're like, all right, bud. Like,
Sure.
Yeah. Can't wait to see you out there. But no, I just trained. I had a guy, a family friend of mine. His brother's actually a strength coach out of the Air Force. But he played at Wisconsin back in the day. Pat McGettigan was his name. He was like a big power lifter guy. He had a business out on the west side, and he had a gym in there. So I would drive out to the west side, train with him in the mornings, come back and just be a student. I played intramurals. I was just I was literally a normal student. But I knew a lot of football guys just from doing camps and the All-Star games and that type of thing. And so I hung out with those guys a little bit just as, friends and all that. And I was literally just a normal student, just chilling, working out, just staying ready, hoping that it was going to be something one day. But yeah, like you look back and I was like, man, that thing was so far from guaranteed. Like they could have been like, sorry, that spot's been gone for months. Like we can't honor that spot. And then you've been like, well, shoot, what do I do now? At least I'm at a good university, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So it did work out though, but I'm wondering for you, obviously you redshirted in 2012. When did you know that you were perhaps going to have an opportunity to play? You played in 2013. Obviously Jared Aberderis had a great year that season, but when did you get an idea that, gosh, I actually belong on this level and I think I'm going to play here a bunch?
Right. Yeah. So that first spring, I didn't know anything. It was my first time playing receiver. But you kind of, you measure, you compare yourself right away. And I wasn't I was like, hey man, I'm not as smooth in transition and route running and all that as these guys, especially when you're watching like a guy like Jared Aberdarius, who's like I said, he's one of the best route runners I've ever seen in my whole career, NFL or college. And so you're watching guys like that, and you're just trying to do what they're doing. You're like, man, I got a long way to go, but I could catch the football. And so I was like, well, my hands are just as good as everyone else's at this point. Now it's a matter of, can I catch up with the route running, creating space, and being a receiver. The blocking stuff, that doesn't take a lot of skill. That's just your want to and your will to do it. So that wasn't an issue. It was just a matter of getting the skill of receiver. But it wasn't until the fall when I was doing the scout team stuff, and you're literally just down on just looking at a card. Here's the route you run. And so I got a lot of freedom to be able to try what I wanted to do and learn the position on my own a little bit with, taking what the coaches are telling us in the individual drills. And then you go down and work with the defense. So you're going against, one of the better defenses in college football. And you get to try to cook them and roast them and do all that. And so my confidence really started to grow in that fall year. I wasn't playing, wasn't traveling, wasn't doing anything other than just practicing. But I was getting a lot of good reps, and I was like, man, I'm starting to actually make some plays out here. And the defense coaches are yelling at me because I'm making plays, which is a good sign of the scout team, getting yelled at by the defensive coaches. And so I knew like I was going to be in position that spring, and I needed some opportunities. I needed some guys to go down with injuries for me to really get an opportunity. But we all know football, there's going to be a plethora of injuries every year. And so those opportunities came in the spring. And but yeah, during that fall, I was like, man, I think I'm going to have a chance to at least contribute in a small role. I never thought I'd grow to what it was, but at least be the maybe fourth, fifth guy playing special teams, coming in and blocking, and kind of my role early in my career, which, in 2013, that's what it kind of became. But yeah, that fall of 2012, which happened really fast looking back. It happened really quick.
So you never played wide receiver before at any level?
So I did my freshman year. I played varsity my freshman year at Darlington, and I played receiver for 2-3 games. And then they're like, oh, we're going to put you quarterback. And so then I started playing quarterback, which was my position growing up, Pee-wee football. And then, so I did play receiver. I think I had one catch in 3 games as a freshman at Darlington High School. And then I moved to quarterback, but I never played again until I got to Wisconsin.
So 2013, you had a role. I'm going to get to. There's a number of games during your career that I wanted to ask you about, but I'm going to go chronologically. So I'm not going to pass by 2013 here without doing it. The Arizona State game out there in the desert, with how that all played out and how that ended. What was it like? What was it like in the locker room after? For anybody that's unaware, and if you're watching this, you probably are very aware. Wisconsin got hosed at the end when Joel Stave took a knee, and they didn't say he took a knee, and then Arizona State jumped on the ball and didn't get an opportunity to kick the potentially game-winning field goal. What was it like in the locker room after that?
It was kind of like disbelief. Like, how is this? Everyone's kind of like frustrated and complaining about what the situation was, just because it was just so absurd that they didn't stop the game and review it, and just everyone just take 30 seconds and just think about what happened here, and we'd be able to solve the problem really quick. But instead, it was just like, oh, game's over, everyone runs off the field, and you're like, what the heck just happened? And so I remember Coach Anderson, he was like apologizing to us because it was something that it was no fault of the players. It was just the refs just absolutely botched the game. And now they got systems in place, and they got the reviews and all that they're kind of seem like they overtake the game a little bit now, which they would have done back then. But yeah, it was just like, how does that happen? Like, this is Division I football, highest level, and they say we didn't take a knee and didn't get a chance to kick the game winner, and whether it makes it or not, that doesn't matter. It's like, we at least deserve the opportunity to get that kick, And it was like everyone was kind of like, no way that actually happened, but it happened.
I remember being in the post game interview room, and there were guys crying in there just because, it's like, how you took a win away from us. This is our senior year. You took it away from us.
Right. Yeah. And I think especially the way the college used to be set up, every game was so important.
Yeah.
A loss early in the season could literally take you out of the, I don't even know what the system was back then, but
BCS.
could take, the BCS, like it could take you out of the contention. And, Wisconsin, we were always like that second tier of knocking on the door, but we're never there. And now we go down to, and we, didn't always play great competition in the early season games. Like, okay, now we're going to Arizona State, hostile environment. And we're about to, I can't remember the distance, but it wasn't like it was a very makeable field goal range.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's like, well, we're right on the doorstep of getting one of those games that propels your season and gets your momentum going. And who knows what happens after that.
I'll let Zach keep going since he's got a rotation of games here.
Okay.
Well, I want to ask about 2015, but you probably have some stuff there. I know I saw Alex a little while ago. I was exaggerating. It felt like you caught 90% of the passes that year.
But man, it was a high number.
Stave throwing 50 times a game. There's a thing of beauty, but I know there's some games before we get to that point.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna get to 2015 because there's quite a few games in that season too where you could just be like, well, what the hell? But 2014 is when you really got an opportunity. Obviously, Jared is gone, and it's you stepping in. But the quarterback situation to start that year, you've got the he's got a shoulder injury. No, he doesn't. For you and I'm sure you like Tanner McAvoy, but during camp, we watched camp. There was no chance that he was a better quarterback than Joel Stave. How did you deal with that? How did everyone deal with just that idea that we're going to start the guy because he can run, but maybe the passing isn't necessarily where it probably needs to be for you?
Yeah, it was hard to watch just from a sheer competition standpoint, right? Everyone wants a fair shot and the best player plays. And when you got people that don't really understand the game saying, wow, this is not even close, like just from a naked eye, not really even understanding what's going on, that this guy deserves to be the quarterback and this guy, and not that Tanner couldn't have been the quarterback. He just would have needed to been a role, like a wildcat role or like some type of role like that, but not our full-time quarterback. And it was just I don't know. Like I like Coach Anderson a lot. Like I think he did a lot of good things, but that obviously wasn't one of them. And it was like, dude, I get you want to be a spread system and all this, and we obviously kind of relived it in the last couple of years. And it just look what our strengths are. Our guys up front, our running backs are our strength. Like, and have a quarterback that can manage the game and, quite frankly, not screw it up, essentially, and make the throws that need to be made when they need to be made, until you get to that level where the quarterback is playing well and all that. But yeah, it was tough to watch. And then, Joel went through some stuff mentally and, was able to come out and have a good senior year. But yeah, it was, gosh, thinking back to that, I was like, man, that was a lot worse. But when you're in it, you're always optimistic and hopeful that this is the best for the team and this is what we need to do. And then you look back on, like, man, that was not the best thing for the team. That was not what we needed to do. And frankly, probably cost us our game early in the year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously open. Go ahead, Jesse.
Zach and I have discussed this over the years because it was one of the most bizarre days I've ever had covering this team in 14 years and really seasons. But there was a time, one of the last open practices, where Gary was talking to reporters, and I still have the quote somewhere in my Rolodex of WordPress documents of all the stories I've written, but it was essentially like, if you've seen what's been going on, you know what direction things are headed. And all of us, again, I'm not a quarterback expert. I'm not going to pretend to be a football expert, but I think I know enough when you watch every snap to see one guy can consistently deliver the ball in the right spots and the other guy struggles, though he is a better athlete. I just assumed that meant Joel was going to be the starter. And then a week or two later, all of a sudden they've got a different starting quarterback. Even at the time, it didn't make sense. And then, of course, you had the whole situation with Joel, which was unfortunate, but they had this press release come out. It was 2 or 3 paragraphs that said he had an injury, an elbow injury. Is that what it was?
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Shoulder, elbow. I can't remember.
Shoulder. Yeah.
I understand Gary was trying to, or the department was trying to help Joel in that situation.
But then Joel came out. Didn't Joel come out and say that I'm not hurt, right?
And that was truly bizarre because he was not supposed to talk. Gary talked after practice that day and was like, "Is it a shoulder? No." But obviously he didn't want to say what was going on. But Joel was like, "No, I want to come out and talk to the reporters," which was not part of the plan. And he was doing his best to explain what was going on. But how can you say it's a mental block? I think I actually asked him a question about the yips.
Right.
But yeah, it was the craziest thing. And of course, we saw what happened against LSU in the first game when you realized, holy crap, this is probably not going to work. And yet Tanner still holds. Is he tied, or did someone pass him for the program record for most consecutive completions against Western Illinois? Because they were all like 4-yard passes. They were all a bunch.
He threw me like 8 hitches in a row.
Yeah. So,
and it was like those ammo screens too, right? Like just like little tosses out there. But I think actually Alex Hornibrook, maybe he was. I thought he beat him. I thought he topped it when he went to BYU in 2017. Either way, the two of those guys having the all-time record for
the era that I was like thinking back, because I tell people I played from 2012 to 2015, and like no one really remembers that block of time, because it was like we had all the coaching changes, and so everyone was thinking like people, and I don't know, like we didn't have. You look back on that roster, we actually had a lot of talented guys on that roster as they developed and became NFL guys. But you like think about it, team, everyone just remembers, Bielema leaving, Gary Anderson coming in, him leaving, going to Oregon State, and then Paul coming back. And so it was just like a mix, and like, who was actually the players on the team those years?
Yeah. I want to ask about that LSU game, because there's famously a rumor or a story or whatever you want to say, what happened at halftime of that game, where Melvin Gordon allegedly yelled at the coaches to put Joel into the game. Is that accurate?
Honestly, I don't remember, but I do remember there was it was getting to the point where it was like, come on, what are we doing? Like, you got to play the guys that are going to put us in the best position. And that wasn't fair to Tanner either, though. Like, that the system wasn't great for, like, set up great for him. Like, he needed to do his role, like, develop into a quarterback. Like, he transferred in from a smaller school, very talented kick guy. Obviously, he wanted to play NFL as a receiver, like, very gifted guy. But that wasn't fair to him to put him in that position either. And so it was just like, if I ever become a coach, those are things that you look back on and you're like, man, I'll never do that as a coach. Like, you got to do what's best for the team, even though it's not the plan that you think it's going to be. Like, you're not putting yourself, you got to put the team first, no matter what it is. Put your ego aside, put the plan that you think this system needs to be aside, and do what's best for the situation that you have. And yeah, they just weren't doing that.
So eventually Joel gets back in, right? Like, and he and takes it back over. But we need to go to that stretch, the Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota stretch to end the year, and specifically the Nebraska game, because you guys got down in that game. Melvin fumbled a couple of times early in that game.
Yeah, we did.
And then you have this third down where Joel found Jordan Frederick for a first down, and it felt like. And then Melvin took off in that long run, the play right after that. There, for you as a receiver watching that, is that the best individual performance that you've been around in a single game?
Yes. I think the fact that it was like, it felt like we were playing a video game where the guy's just like, oh, he's breaking loose. And then you like look up and it's like, dude, he's at like 300 some yards. And then he breaks another one. You're like, it's absurd. But yeah, like you said, it was such a weird game, because it felt like we were going to get dominated. And then a couple plays later, now we're just literally running anything we want and gashing them for 40, 50 yards a pop.
It was insane.
It was. Yeah, it was. You look back on those games like, man, because the receiver coach at the time was Coach Beatty. Chris Beatty is his name. I was with him in LA a couple years ago at the Chargers. And so we kind of like after practice, would be just doing our post practice routine stuff. And we'd always just chop it up about our days at Wisconsin. And we talked about that because we just talked about how much blocking we did as a receiving core. Because you get the NFL and you do block as a receiver and you got your stuff, but it's very minimum compared to what we did at Wisconsin. And he was like, yeah, he's like, we probably should have spent more time just working on blocking because we were blocking 75% of the game. And then it's 3rd and 8. Now you got to make a catch. But yeah, it's cool to go back and remember those days. And yeah, that performance by Melvin and the offensive line is as good as you're going to see even to this day.
You want to talk about dudes not being on the same page. I know Zach remembers this, and I'm sure it's where your mind went when you first heard Chris Beatty. It was early in the season, and it may have been that LSU game. I think Gary said something to the effect of the receivers weren't like running their routes or getting open, and I know I'm paraphrasing. And then when we talked to Chris that week, he's like, no, they ran exactly the routes that they were supposed to run. And it's like, I think you should get your story straight before you speak publicly, which was probably one of the biggest issues that Gary had in his
right. You see that I've seen that a lot. Like, so when the head coach, not this situation specifically, but it kind of is like when the head coach is trying to protect a certain player and throws other players under the bus, but then there's coaches that are their job's on the line too, and he's like, I'll be damned if you're going to throw my guys under the bus because your guy's not performing. And it makes for a dicey dynamic in the locker room and all that because the best teams I've been on, it's not Zach's fault, it's not Jesse's fault, it's not my fault. Like, yeah, there's plays I could have made, there's plays you could have made, and we all kind of lift each other up, and we all know like if I made a mistake, guys got my back and we'll fix it. But then also at the same time, you got to know as a player that the coach is putting you in the best position to win, and he's putting the best guys that he thinks going to win. And then if it doesn't, you got to be able to pivot and move and make the decisions that's why you're getting paid the way you're getting paid as a head coach, because you've got to make the decisions that aren't easy and maybe go against what people think. But at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for the team. And yeah, I do remember that because Coach Beatty, even to this day, like he's always sticking up for his guys. And yeah, I got a lot of respect for that guy. He's a great coach. And obviously, yeah, he didn't like that. We were getting thrown to the bus because the ball couldn't get delivered where it needed to get delivered when we were open. But receivers were always open. The quarterbacks were, it's a story old as time.
It was funny though. That's actually, Jesse, that's exactly where my mind went when I heard the name Chris Beatty, was just that day because that was funny. But you went through the surprise of Brett Bielema leaving. Did you get the surprise of Gary Anderson leaving at the end of that season after the Big Ten championship game and all that happened in there? I don't know that we need to talk about 59-0, but the experience of then getting Barry for a second time. You got him in the Rose Bowl the first year, but you get him for a second time, and he goes out a winner in that game. That was one of the best games I think I've covered here in this last decade plus. I've been covering the team. That Outback Bowl was awesome. It was awesome, and Melvin was great. But you guys all around, it was just a really good back and forth game.
Well, it's funny because when Barry the first time, and I wasn't playing at that stage. But the first time he was very passive. Like he's kind of just, standing there, just kind of directing the team, like just kind of setting the plan up, but wasn't really heavily involved like he was the second time. Well, the second time comes around, he's like, screw this. We've lost how many bowl games in a row? Like, this is it. Like, we put the pads back on. We got to live the real Barry Alvarez, which was like, you look back, it was so awesome because he's legendary, And so we put the pads back on. We are hitting. We're getting after it. And when I say that guy can motivate and get you to run through a wall, like when he talked, you like get chills. You're like, I'm ready to freaking run through a wall for this guy. And we showed it in that game. We played an Auburn team that was very talented, like every SEC team. And we were throwing haymakers at them. They were throwing them back, and we were duking it out the whole game. And it was a heck of a game, and kind of broke the snide of the bowl streak that we were losing. And but it was cool to see get the full Barry Alvarez and just the mentality of, and because Gary's philosophy and what we did at Wisconsin was different from, you know, Bielema and obviously Barry, even with Paul when we got back to him, like Gary's philosophy was different. And not that it was wrong, it was just different than what we did at Wisconsin. And so when Alvarez came back, man, it was like this is what we all signed up for. This is Wisconsin football. This is nasty, gritty ball. Just what you think about. And obviously you win the game, and so you're like, well, that formula is kind of time tested and true at any level. And yeah, it was pretty special to be able to play for him and the way he directed us, and the Godfather, man.
The celebration was great. Still one of the best celebrations. I don't care if it wasn't a championship game or the Rose Bowl. They picked up Barry. They jumped with the big blue Gatorade jug and run into the sideline to hug their family. I wanted to know what you thought when Gary left, though. we kind of glided right over that, but like through 2-3 days after the Big Ten championship game, he's going to Oregon State. What was going through your head?
I was like, man, 59-0's bad, but it ain't that bad to get you out of town. Because it wasn't like we were a bad team. Obviously, we got whooped in that game. But to be fair, I think Ohio State would have whooped a lot of teams in that game.
They won the national title.
Right. Like, yeah, obviously it was kind of embarrassing because you just never want to get beat that bad. But that's just one game. And, I mean, how many wins we had that year? We had to be pushing with the –
You ended up with 10.
Yeah, we went up 10 with the bowl game. So it's like, man, we're winning a lot of games. We're having success. And we're kind of confused on where we're going with the direction of the team, but we're still winning. And so, yeah, I don't – his philosophy was not going to work at Wisconsin. What he was trying to do recruiting-wise wasn't sustainable. But that point aside, like, we're still winning. So when he left, we're like, he left to go where? And that's no disrespect.
It's a little disrespect.
Right. Yeah, I guess. But it's like, dude, I just, you don't see too many people take a lesser job after they had success at a good program. It was just something you didn't expect. But hey, he had to do what he had to do. And that's, I like Gary a lot, and I got a lot of respect for Coach Anderson, and I think he was a good coach. I just don't think the marriage was great at Wisconsin, but it doesn't mean it wasn't going to work elsewhere. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
So automatically, though, everyone, as soon as he left, it was like, all right, Paul Chryst is coming back. I mean,
right.
Barry didn't do it the first time because he felt bad about taking him from Pitt after 1 year. Maybe he wasn't ready, whatever it was. But we knew where this was going as soon as Gary left, right? So Paul comes back and gets back to, I think, what Wisconsin football was and wants to be. And you guys have a 2015 that's really, really impressive. And you had an amazing season. I mean, that 978 yards you had is the 6th most in a season, and your 77 catches that year, the 2nd most, only behind Jared Aberdeen's 78. And yet, I feel like some of the games that we're going to talk about in 2015 are the what the hell moments, and specifically against Northwestern, because you had 3 touchdowns taken off the board. You had a punt return that was taken off the board. Fumagalli had a touchdown was taken off the board, and obviously Jazz Peavy, who obviously caught the ball, had a touchdown taken off the board. I mean, it was that. I don't want to say a game was stolen from you, but the game was stolen from you guys.
Yeah, that's yeah. It's unfortunate because stuff like that shouldn't happen just based on common sense. But at the same time, too, like that's kind of life and stuff happens. Sure. But that team, obviously, it's my senior year. Like I was captain on that team. Like so that team is obviously very special to me. But the one thing I loved about that team was we had a lot of young linemen, and our team was built differently than in the past because we really couldn't run the ball. Like we struggled running the ball, which like how do you win that many games and struggle winning the ball? And so like that's like in the crap that Joel went through and his ability to come back and like so that team was built you know, it was very similar to what Paul's character was, like not flashy, not going to do anything out of this world. Like you're not going to show up and be like, oh, these guys are freaking world beaters, but they just find a way to win and doing whatever it takes to win. And yeah, obviously the Northwestern game, like even that game, it's like, man, how do you won that game 3-4 times and you don't, but it's like, then you got to come back the next week and find a way to win. And that was what's cool about that team. And it was a team that really fit into Coach Chris' personality right when he came in. And granted, a lot of those recruits were guys Coach Chris had contact with, you know, before he left. And so it was still a very Wisconsin mold team. But that was a really fun team because we just found ways to win. And we had guys that were sneaky good, like guys that went on to play in the NFL a long time and guys that people that were very underrated in the grand scheme of things. And just go, I mean, you just grab that roster and go down and be like, you know, TJ Watt, Vince Beagle, Joe Schober, you know, Ramczyk was there. Like there's, you know, Ingle, like there's a group of guys that were just, man, really solid guys that were just good football players, not world beaters, not 5-star recruits. Just, you know, you sound boring saying it, but it's just Wisconsin. Like just this is what it was.
I love that Joel went out with a broken nose, came back and helped lead the holiday bowl.
I know Joel, and you guys can attest to this. Like no one took more crap than Joel Stave. No one. Like I don't know if you guys will ever cover another player that took more crap than maybe Mertz. I don't know.
It's usually the quarterback, right? Because obviously Alex Hornibrook took a huge amount of crap as well. Like it feels like the quarterback of the Wisconsin team, and they don't get to the level that everyone thinks they should be, and it's the quarterback's fault. There's got to be somebody better. There's got to be. We saw that there wasn't in 2014.
Do you guys think it's the Russell Wilson effect, or like what?
Oh yeah,
or just fans in general? I mean, because Wisconsin fans have been spoiled with very good quarterback play. At even with Green Bay, you know, a lot of the backer fans are Badger fans, and so you know you get Hall of Fame quarterback play, and then you get, I mean, even Tolzien, like he was a great player. You know, Then you go to Russell, and Russell was kind of different because he was actually. Like he could change the game, you know, at quarterback. And not that Tolzien couldn't, but Tolzien was going to play within the system and deliver the ball where he needed to be and make the plays when they need to be made. Where Russell he could turn something into nothing, you know?
Yeah.
I think every situation was a little bit different. Joel's situation may be a little bit of the Russell effect, but also I think fans want to feel like every year they're seeing consistent improvement, and Joel's progress was impeded by things beyond his control. Because if you look at that sophomore year, he had like 23 touchdown passes. I think it's still maybe it's the third most now because Alex Hornibrook might have passed him, but it was one of the better seasons by a Wisconsin quarterback that wasn't Russell Wilson in terms of sheer numbers. And then you have what happened where it's a massive setback and he can't throw the ball for several weeks. So by the end, though, I think fans get tired of seeing the same thing if it doesn't lead to exceptional performance. Yeah. So I remember writing a story about it because his brother Brian, I remember talking to him, like he would wear a Stave jersey in the stands and people were just shitting all over Joel. It was just like, but I think you don't appreciate people until a little bit afterward. But like the Graham situation, I was just talking about this not very long ago, not to get on a tangent, but if he didn't come with the 4-star ranking and the number 1 quarterback in the country and everything that came with it, you would have looked at his career and said, that's not bad. Threw 19 touchdown passes his last season here, but because there were national championship expectations and everything that came with it, it was just never going to meet that standard. So
right. I think the expectations change a lot, you know,
yeah.
Like people have those expectations of something, and then that's why fans love the players and the teams that exceed expectations, even though in the grand scheme of things, they were a solid team, but they weren't world beaters, but they exceeded the expectations. So everyone's like, oh, that team was awesome, you know?
Yeah. Can't take away Joel Stave being the all-time wins leader at Wisconsin.
Right. That record is going to stand a long time with the way the transfers are now.
Yeah. I mean, the way that Wisconsin is.
I mean, is there a chance a quarterback's going to stay in one spot for 3 years? Probably not. You would need 3 solid years to be able to beat it.
Yeah, I mean, like, yes, you would need at least 3 years, especially with this conference and the teams that they're playing on a regular basis. Like, asking them,
probably need 3.5, 4 to be honest. If you're
to get double-digit wins, you know, yes. I would also say, like, the way he started in 2012, how good he was in 2012, and if he didn't get hurt, you know, maybe you guys are even better that year, and it's not the backing into the Big Ten championship game that some people view that season as. But he got off to a solid start, and people are like, all right, well, this is our next guy. And then, as you said, Jesse, maybe didn't take the steps, but again, not always his fault either, because of Gary Anderson and injuries and otherwise. But
right, yeah, and I still, the way he came out his senior year in 2015 and had a really good year, like, that says a lot about Joel and his character. And he stood in there, he took a lot of punches, and not all of them are, warranted, but for him to come back and have the year he had, like, that's stuff that you go through in life, that you come out the other side. There's not much that's going to be able to derail you from getting done what needs to get done and achieving your goals.
I'd say this as well, just before we move on. I think, and I'm guilty of this too, because I got here in 2011. It's the middle of Russell Wilson, Monte Ball, two of the greatest offensive players in college football you'll see on the same team. You get spoiled by success. And at a certain point, when Wisconsin's winning 9 games a year, 10 games a year, it's like, well, this is the norm. So how did they get to that next level? And we've seen the last 5 years how hard it was to do it. And I don't think I appreciated how difficult that was to do until you're not doing it and realize, man, I don't want to say never, but like, when is this going to happen again? So you start to take that out on your frustrations on not getting that next level. And now it's like, is this team going to get to a bowl game? And granted, the schedule is a hell of a lot different than it was at any time before, but it's just maybe didn't appreciate in the moment what we were witnessing. Yeah,
but I think changes needed to happen for people to realize that, and so it's kind of a double-edged sword, but I mean, Wisconsin was also, they were trending down a little bit. So I don't think and I love Coach Chris, and he's one of my favorite coaches of all time. I don't know if I don't like the way it ended. But also, everyone gets fired, everyone gets let go, everyone gets cut. Like, it's just, unless you're Hall of Famer, like, it's hard, man. It's a hard world. It's hard to win games at any level. Like, it's so competitive. The margin for winning and losing is so small, and you miss on a couple players, a couple guys don't develop the way they need to. Gosh, it just makes it hard.
It does. I wanted to touch on a few more things before we get into some of just what Wisconsin is right now. Quickly on your NFL career, undrafted. Did you, like, going into that, were you expecting to be undrafted? Is that kind of what the message was, or maybe like a late round draft pick? But just to end up where you did and then to do what you did was really impressive. But just going into it, were you?
Yeah, unsure? I knew it was gonna be late round at best. I was having great dialogue with teams. I was going on visits, so there was definitely, I knew I was going to get an opportunity. Looking back on, I'm glad I went undrafted, because then my agent and I, like, we sat down and we kind of went through the roster logistics and, like, where are the holes, and Cincinnati. I had a good relationship with the receiver coach. The way he talked about my game is the way I talked about my game. So he saw the game, he saw my strengths the way I see them. Which is important for a coach that's going to put you in the positions to have success. They lost Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu, so everyone is going to have to move up to fill those roles. Well, I knew I wasn't going to be able to fill a 2 or 3 role, but I could fill a 4, 5, 6 role somewhere in there. And how that all was going to play out was, I don't know. But it was kind of what I did at Wisconsin was very similar to what I did in the NFL. And so you kind of just fall back onto what you had success with. And so when I got to Cincinnati, I was buried in the depth chart, but every undrafted guy is buried in the depth chart. And so I knew I had to do something on special teams. And I wasn't the fastest guy to be able to play gunner. I wasn't big body to do kickoff return, all that stuff. It was kind of returner was my only option, but I didn't have a lot of experience at Wisconsin. I did punt returns a little bit with Sojourn my last year, but I could catch the ball. And so I used to always go out and catch punts with the return coach or the special teams coach, Darren, who's still there. He's been there forever. One of the best special team coaches in the league. And so I remember the first preseason game came around. We were actually playing the Vikings, who Joel was on the Vikings at the time. and it was the fourth quarter. The guy they wanted to be the returner was hurt. And I wasn't even – so the way the preseason works is you kind of go through the depth chart like the night before the game. So it'll be like – and I was playing a lot on offense. So it was like, Alex, you're going to play the second quarter on offense, some in the third quarter, then you're going to be done. And then the special teams coach will be like, hey, you're going to be you're going to take the first 2 punts at gunner or whatever for you guys. And I literally didn't have one play on special teams. He's like – he didn't say my name once of like what I was going to do. And so the game comes around and the guy that they wanted to be the returner gets hurt. So it's the fourth quarter. He's looking around like, who can we put back there? Because we had 2 other guys that were established guys. They were done playing. So he throws me in there. Guy bombs me. I catch over my shoulder. Boom, boom, boom. 75 yards to the house. And that play was kind of the catalyst to getting more opportunities, which led into me ultimately beating out the guy that was been there for a long time. And kind of the play that, allowed me to have the career I was going to have. Obviously, there's a lot more into that, but that one play was their opportunity to be like, well, maybe this guy is real deal. And so now they go back and they're watching you differently than they were before, and they're evaluating everything you do now more seriously, and they're talking about you, and that's what you want. You want them talking about you up in those personnel meetings, and ultimately you want to make their decision hard. And you don't want them to they don't want to lose you, so then they got to keep you, and that's how you make a roster.
So you ended up being having this you're not done yet, but right now the second longest career of any Wisconsin wide receiver. Only Chris Chambers played more. He played 10 seasons. So you've got 9. Lee Evans had 8. But most punt return and kick return yardage of any Wisconsin player in NFL history. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So you got, yeah, exactly. You carved out an amazing career considering where you started both in college and in the NFL. Is that how you look at it? Just like I never could have expected any of this.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. You got your head down, and you're just like grinding, and you're like, I remember having a conversation with my dad. I was like, man, I just want to play 1 year in the NFL. Like, just give me 1 year. Like, let me just play 1 year, And then it's like, well, you had a pretty good year. It's like, well, let's just keep going. And not that you're not grateful for your career, but you're just like so focused on going forward that you don't ever look back. And I think the last couple of years when I knew it's coming to the end was when I really was like, man, that was pretty special. Like it was a pretty cool career. A lot to be proud of, and a lot of people helped me get there. And you kind of just look back, you're like, how did I get? Obviously, you work hard and you put yourself in position to have success and earn the opportunities. But you also, there's sometimes you get opportunities like, why did I get that opportunity versus the next guy? And like those are just things that that just the ball goes your way sometimes. And whether it was at Wisconsin with injuries and getting an opportunity to show what I can do, or that first preseason game where the guy goes down and then I'm just the guy that coach is like, oh, Alex, go, and then that turns that play. So there's a lot of things that have to go your way, a lot of fortunate things, but at the same time too, you kind of make your own luck in that sense too. So it was special to look back on, and it's something that obviously I'll carry with me for the rest of my days.
Alex, you're probably more attuned now to Wisconsin football now that you don't have to play your own games.
Yeah,
Zach, you've got something else. Go ahead. That's where I was headed next, but
no, that's where I was going to go. But before we jumped into the change that they made this offseason, what's the last couple of years been like for a Wisconsin alum watching this team and just watching the program, maybe have some struggles that we haven't seen in quite some time?
Yeah, it's the challenge is like I'll always support Wisconsin and be optimistic about where the direction the program's going, and so I know there's still good people making decisions, and there's good people, even good people in the program that are leading the direction. So I don't think the intent's there. It's just a matter of can we execute and get the job done. And so for me as a former player and just someone watching the games, like critically, you're like just not playing solid football, beating yourself and doing that stuff. And, Coach Belichick, used to always talk about, we got to stop from beating ourselves before we can actually start beating somebody else. And, you watch those games, you're like, man, there's penalties. There's, you're last year you're playing against good teams and you throw a pick six, down on your own, you're backed up, and it's like those are just one-off plays, but there's a trend that you see of just not playing solid football. And so for me, it's like, man, before we start talking about bowl games and 10 wins, like maybe let's just get lined up and execute plays and see solid football before we start worrying about the results, because all that stuff will take care of itself. And I know the fans don't think about games that way, and that's why would they? If you don't win the game, it doesn't matter. But I think when you watch the product on the field, you can see, we played well. We did everything we could to win the game. We didn't have it at the end. You can live with that stuff. You can't live with, pissing games away because you're turning the ball over, having penalties, shooting yourself in the foot every step of the way. So that's been the thing for me that's been the hardest to watch. Obviously, schematically, that wasn't working. But Coach Fickle made the changes they need to make to get back to what he thinks is going to be successful, which I agree with that. Whether it translates to wins on the field, who knows? But I think it puts the players in the best position to have success. And like we talked about, back in the day, as a coach, that's what you got to do. You can have this plan in your mind, what you want the program to be, but if you're not willing to change and put the scheme in place for the players, then obviously you're not doing what's best for the team. And Coach Fickle, he's a smart guy. He knows he's had a lot of success as a coach. He's gonna do what needs to be done to win. I don't think that's the problem. I think it's just a matter of executing and doing the little things better than we've done in the past. And so I'm sure they're working on that right now as we speak. And I'm excited. I talked to Jesse about it, and you reporters, you're more, hey, until I see it, like I'm not going to believe it type thing, because you're observing what's going on in the program. For me, it's like I'm a fan of the program. I'm a loyal guy. So man, they're going to win 10 games. They're going to play great football, and people will be like, this guy's out of his mind. The first comment that's going to be on this when you post it. But hey, I think there's positions that they took care of that were paramount for them to take care of. I think they got the right guys in those positions. Hey, let's see what happens.
We definitely will. Alex, if you want more of what we talked about here, Alex did a great Badger Bites video on Badger Connect, plug with Vinny Anthony a couple weeks back, and it was really insightful and really good stuff. So check that out. And also, you got this other new venture you just bought into, Part Owner Sports Advantage, which is popping up all over the state.
Yeah, Sports Advantage. Yeah, we train all levels of athletes, kids up to professional athletes. So it's where I trained the last 9-10 years. So Brian Body's a former strength coach at Wisconsin. It's all Badger guys. Ryan Groy is one of the owners, and then Joe Thomas, obviously, he's one of the owners too. So it's a fun group, man. We're just trying to give kids a product that obviously develops them as athletes. But as we all know, there's so much more that goes into being a good athlete. The discipline and the responsibility and the ownership that you have to take into becoming the player you want to be. And because ultimately, these kids aren't going to go on to play D1 or professionally, but that's okay. You can still develop those skills, those life skills that you learn in the weight room. You learn through training, you learn that showing up day in and day out, and the results come by that discipline you have. But back to the Badgers Connect and the podcast we did, Vinny Anthony, when I was doing that podcast, I went in and studied some of this film so I actually knew what I was talking about. That kid's a really good player, man. Like that kid's he's an all-around receiver. And Jesse and I talked about, I don't know how many passes there'll be to go around for that receiver group, but that's a solid group. Tretch in the slot. They got Vinny, whoever starts on the other side. Like, he's a really good player. I was watching his film. It's like, man, he does a lot of good things. He does a lot of the little things right. Whether we talked about it a lot in the clip. Just getting vertical after the catch and just the way he catches the ball with his hands, and just little things that you don't think add to much, but turn a 20-yard catch into a 25-yard catch. And but shout out to Badger Connect.
I love that Billy showed up just because he thought he was going to meet with some teammates, and all of a sudden, it's
Right.
like,
That was like it was perfect. It was perfect. But yeah, Billy, man, I was really impressed by him. I was watching practice before, and just from the eye test, like he could spin the ball. The ball comes out of his hand with velocity. Like he looks like a real guy. So I'm excited for him, man. That's just me being a homer. I know that, but I'm excited for him.
Hey, Alex, really appreciate your time and coming on and reminiscing and talk a little current Badgers as well. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks, guys. I really appreciate the time.
All right, there he is. Alex Erickson, former Wisconsin wide receiver.